AI as your intern, not an oracle. If we think about it
Yes.
as an oracle and we go ask it what's the meaning of life, and then we scoff at it that it doesn't know the meaning of life, shame on us. We're not using it right. My wife tries to use it for restaurants, and it's dated. It has closed restaurants in its listing, but that makes sense. It read the whole internet a little while ago. It
Yep.
is not an in-the-moment lookup engine. It's a generator of strings of content. And so roll your chair up next to somebody, say, what problem are you trying to solve right now? And we go into it and use it as that intern, that collaborator, the digital collaborator it's meant to be. And that's when you see that unlock where people will never give it back up again.
Thanks so much for joining another edition of the Never Ending Climb for Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement. Today, we have the pleasure of being joined by Tim Creasey. And Tim, Chief Innovation Officer at Prosci. And I think we all heard it. Prosci needs no introduction. And helping people unlock those challenges of change. And I love that because on the Never Ending Climb, we need to deeply understand what's really going on to get to that next level and unlock potential. And the way Tim does it and the whole Prosci team, they're doing this based on decades of research, hard facts and data that we all need to make the best decisions. Tim, thank you so much for joining us today to share your wisdom.
It's an honor to be here. Excited to share what we've learned and what we're thinking about the people side, and especially the people side of this fascinating transformation that we're all swimming through right now.
Oh my goodness, fascinating and fast-paced, and holy smokes, hold on, here we go. Because there's all of these stats coming out around this percentage and that percentage failed and they're wasted. And I mean, sometimes it's because the demo looked really cool, but it doesn't actually really do that. And so we want to weed those out. But what are people finding now between successful versus unsuccessful adoption of AI in you and your team's research?
Well, I think there's this fascinating paradox that we're living in, right? Around how AI adoption is coming to life in organizations. I like to talk a lot about the difference between sanctioned and unsanctioned AI usage. And Ethan Mollick, one of the great thinkers in the AI space, talks about these secret cyborgs that are sneaking AI to work to help them do their jobs at higher quality and less time with less mental strain, and not sharing that they're doing it. And he gives a bunch of reasons why. And so unsanctioned adoption of AI, that creates a lot of challenges for us as we're leading organizations.
Yep.
Not only around security and governance, but also how do we tap into the innovation that's happening in that unsanctioned AI usage? Because that's where it's happening. The sanctioned side, we're getting much different adoption challenge, right? A lot of times we're getting we turned it on for everybody and no one's actually using it. We turned it on and people are using it, but they're using it at a real snackable level. You know, they're doing meeting summaries, email drafts, but they're not starting to really look at how it can amplify the organization and the role they're playing in it.
Yeah.
Or you get what we sometimes call pilot purgatory. We just have loads and loads of pilots that are laying around and they're not either being turned off or scaled up because we're just not hitting that sweet spot in the middle. So, you know, sanctioned and unsanctioned both have challenges, I think, that we as organizations and organizational leaders need to help navigate.
And I think the difference between sanctioned and unsanctioned is really one of those remarkable opportunities to identify the people in your organization, to the extent that they're willing to volunteer, that they're actually doing it, that you should be including in that work, right? Because the who matters so very much.
Absolutely.
There's pilots getting started up with people that are like, I don't know why I'm on this team. And you wonder, is that going to be successful? It feels like we didn't start off right.
And also, all of us only have about 1,010 days experience with generative AI. Every single one of us has the exact runway of experience. Now, exposure hours, that's totally different. My head of product, Paul Gonzalez, talks about how critical it is to get leaders exposure hours. Really have them actually roll up their sleeves, fingers on the keyboards, to understand what are the capabilities, what are the boundaries, where does it fall down, where can I push it? I say if our leaders do not have their fingers on the keyboard, they're missing the point and they're missing the boat right now.
Oh, big time. And I think it's the hands-on keyboard that helps leaders really differentiate between the cool idea or the cool demo and what's real and what really works. Like one of my favorite examples is one of our customers is trying to use AI very broadly, and one of their pilots was to try to create this kind of, answer chatbot. And they keep testing it with this really simple question: who is our CFO? Who is our CEO? And the problem is they cannot get a consistently correct answer more than about 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, it's funny, right? To me, it's not a lookup engine, right?
Yeah.
It's a generation engine. It strings together using probability math a string of words that make sense to us based on what we asked it, and it made sense of.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, we're using it wrong if we're using it as a lookup engine. And that's where we need to teach our people like where it really excels and where we need to pull back and check it, yeah, it's not a lookup engine. It's a generative engine that helps us brainstorm, research, ideate, draft, expand, summarize, analyze, synthesize. But it doesn't know facts. It doesn't generate facts like a lookup engine would. So yeah, fascinating. And so we got to get people stepping into that right way to use it. I have a client. He's one of my favorites. He's head of AI adoption. Has taught the Prosci program, certified tons of folks. But he reached out one time and he said, I figured out how to get people into our chatbot, our answer engine, to where they'll never, ever get back out of it again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, as a person in the adoption space, I'm expecting the magic elixir. Right here it comes.
Yeah.
So I get on the phone with him and I'm like, tell me the secret, Chris, how'd you do it? And he goes, I roll my chair up next to him. I say, what problem are you dealing with right now? And we just go into the engine and start asking it questions about that problem. Sean, see, that's the thing. My frame that I really lead with is AI as your intern, not an oracle. If we think
Yes.
about it as an oracle and we go ask it what's the meaning of life, and then we scoff at it that it doesn't know the meaning of life, shame on us. We're not using it right. My wife tries to use it for restaurants, and it's dated. It has closed restaurants in its listing, but that makes sense. It read the whole internet a little while ago. It
Yeah.
is not an in the moment lookup engine, it's a generator of strings of content. And so, roll your chair up next to somebody, say, what problem are you trying to solve right now? And we go into it and use it as that intern, that collaborator, the digital collaborator that it's meant to be. And that's when you see that unlock where people will never give it back up again.
And I think this is one of the lines that I know our team and the way that our products and so on are designed is we encourage folks to think about the line of it is not the authoritative answer almost ever. And you should plan on whatever it thinks the answer is being wrong at least 1 time out of 10. And in enterprises, which I think for the most part, a lot of your customers are in large enterprise, a 90% success rate sounds awesome, except you need a 2 or 3 sigma, like 99.999 level of reliability before anybody's going to trust it. And I think that trust is undermined the instant, like before it's even started. It's undermined if you're trying to apply it to the wrong problem or to solve something the wrong way or setting the oracle level expectations.
Totally. Fit for purpose, right? Yeah, it's different than the automation of the past, which was meant to give us very predictable within a couple sigma outputs, right? It was automation of a process, automation toward an outcome. What we're talking about here is generation. And I think that's the pivot that people are struggling with. If we think about it as an intern, how often do you trust your intern?
Oh,
Well,
it's such a
a lot of the
such a
times, but you're
powerful.
going to review it every single time, right?
Yeah.
Like every single time, you're going to run your eyes over it. And I have people that push back. They're like, Tim, I don't like the intern analogy because interns are really smart. And I'm like, absolutely,
Hmm.
there's interns smarter than us all the time. Like, it's got
Yeah.
a kind of a little bit of hubris to think like intern doesn't imply relative intelligence. It implies I set expectations, direction, what I'd like you to go do or come back to me with.
Yeah.
You go out and do some of that work and come back to me with it. And so,
And then
yeah,
let's
help.
look at that together and we'll make some edits and you
Absolutely.
don't necessarily have the years and years of experience or some of the common sense or wisdom or context. Context catches folks so quickly, and the ability to insert the additional relevant context so powerful. And
You
I
know,
feel like that unsuccessful adoption of AI has often, at least, my unscientific experience or recency and frequency bias for sure, is indexed right now towards, well, we started trying to do this cool thing because somebody had an idea, and so we tried it, but it didn't work because it wasn't designed or an expert for that. Even something like trying to chat with a database. This
Yeah.
is right now no better than 30% in the best solutions out there.
I've kind of gotten a similar but different signal over the last, and again, we're trying to, it's both fascinating to make a evergreen podcast about AI and not talk about what's happening right now, right?
Right?
There's a pretty big pivot. There's an acceleration, I think, especially since GPT-5 dropped, where people are getting more and more connected to this. I had 3 different conversations in the last 2 weeks with AI leadership committees, and all 3 of them had to me, it was more of this story, Sean. Within our organization, we have a couple of very technical, specific things that we do based on the nature of the work we do. We applied AI into those and got really effective and good at these very technical scientific applications specific to a particular part of the organization. Now, what we're trying to do is help the rest of the organization help build this pervasive proficiency, not just the tailored technological applications, but the pervasive proficiency where the organization starts to become AI infused.
Mhm.
And so I hit, like, again, in the last couple of weeks, all various different industries, different countries, actually, but a similar story of we nailed it in this piece. Had all these pilots that didn't work, and we're not sure what to do with them, but we're not quite sure how to bring it more broadly to the rest of the organization. And that's where you mentioned our research foundation. We did research about AI adoption across the entire enterprise. So 525 frontline employees, 389 team leaders, 193 executives, all answering questions about AI and challenges and why they're using it and how they're evaluating. What was neat is we were able to look across all that data and say, if I were to stack up the ones doing well and the ones that weren't, what's differentiating them? What commonalities am I seeing?
So
The
powerful.
number one statement that came out of that at the top of our diagnostic is our senior leaders clearly articulate the value AI brings to transforming our organization. Not that our leaders are talking about the latest shiny thing. Our senior leaders are clearly articulating what we as an AI infused organization in the future look like. They're not talking about building an AI strategy. They're talking about infusing our strategy with AI and the capabilities that AI brings. So that's where I think we don't get that traction of organizations really starting to bring this to life like it can and like it is in certain places, and hopefully not in your competitor, because they're probably leaning into this.
Oh, absolutely. What I love about that is it echoes so many of the most important ideas and just long-standing truths about people and business and organizations of tone at the top, the strategy, the vision, and the culture to make room for these things trump all of the very best pilots and all of the very best initiatives. Or some companies, they have internal jokes about how they have this New Year's big program has been named with this cute 4-letter acronym that sounds, like whatever name. And, I wonder what it's going to be next year because it's not going to change much. And those organizations that are so solidified have almost no hope of really materially implementing anything at scale because it's missing the tone at the top, it's missing the vision, and it's missing that ability to execute and get it down through the team, which is change and the vision and the strategy and so on that go in to enable those. I love that the data just came back and reinforced all of those things that AI or not have been true for so long.
Absolutely. The leadership, I was playing with the definition of leadership for a while, that it's really creating the collective conditions for individual success.
Yeah.
But leadership is condition setting. And I think you're right. It's in terms of setting the culture, the expectations, a lot of those core foundational structural components. One of the others, and I mentioned this 20-factor AI adoption diagnostic that came out of the research that we're starting to deploy with clients. Another one there is really around that condition setting, and it's that experimentation culture. The organization encourages employees at all levels to experiment with AI tools, share insights, and learn from their failures. experimentation is not something that you can just write in a memo. It
No.
takes leaders creating the conditions into which experimentation is the way we lean into this new technology. So lots of
Yeah.
cultural foundations for sure.
And and psychological safety being so critical, so powerful. Tim, it's absolute gold when we get right back down to all of those things that matter so much, regardless of whether or not somebody's talking about all of the buzzword bingo for AI. It really comes back down to the fundamentals. And I think this is where we're also seeing some organizations really leading and others struggling to figure out how to spell AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I've been playing with, and I think this sets here too, Sean, is the notion of your process debt, your data debt, and your system debt.
Hmm.
It all carried an interest rate before AI.
Oh, yeah.
Let's say maybe it was 4%.
Yeah.
With the capabilities of AI, yeah, exactly. That multiplied. We compounded that interest rate because ad hocery in our processes, AI can't help with that. Unclean and messy, duplicative data, that just makes it messier. And if our systems are barely taped together, and I think what you've added is there's a cultural component too, right? Around that, the psychological safety component that we had when we stepped into this AI world is going to show up in how people figure out how to bring the tool into the way they do their job. And I think that's the tricky part is with ERPs, CRMs, PLMs, all the old digital transformation systems we rolled out. I've just started to play with this one, Sean, that the task and the tool were connected.
Yeah.
When we roll
Yeah.
out
There was a
generative AI as a
transaction and there was a
tool,
process and a
yeah,
user guide.
yeah, the process step, the activity we took, the task was directly tied to a step in using the tool. That's essentially what we're doing is teaching people. Generative AI is different. You have a whole bunch of tasks that make you you and help you do your job. The tool sits out here with a bunch of capabilities. And how do we start to help people figure out how to map and match those two? To me, that is the actual unlock. When we talk about AI literacy and what we need to teach people, it's how to make sense of when and where to bring this capability set into the way they do their work, as opposed to any of the kind of the zeros and ones. And it's not activity tool, it's your activity set, tool capabilities. How do you figure out how to weave the two together?
Yeah. And I think being able to weave the two together in a cool demo or a really quick pilot to get, partway there, the next steps after that of getting to scale up does depend on having enough reliability in it to really make it work, that you can actually give it a scenario and then test to see if it passed the scenario. And one of the things that I've seen holding some organizations back is inability to agree on and articulate what the scenario is and what the expected outcome is, which means it's not a system yet. It's chaos. And that chaos, if trying to combine, to your point, that degree of chaos and that really poor data. And it's funny too, because we've seen successful implementations where the data is really not perfect, but the way that it's used accommodates for that, and massive improvements can still be realized. And I think that's one of the things too, is sometimes people go, oh my God, our data is so bad, and they're paralyzed, as opposed to saying, well, great, where do we start with that? And then how do we iterate from there? That bite-sized chunk is the other piece, is trying to boil the ocean or do so much at once, as opposed to bite-sized add value, bite-sized add value. One of the controllers from one of our customers was telling me the other day that one of the things that he's noticed is that it's the quiet projects, and he was pointing to some of the things that our team has helped with, of it's the quiet things that there's maybe only 10 people in the company that know about, but they made such a big difference. And so they're working on finding ways to celebrate those, to tell more people about them, and to then go do that again. Because there's this evolving theory sometimes that some organizations might joke that the laws of physics deem that it is very difficult to, insert whatever it is in this organization. Well, the next thing out of their mouth is, it's not actually a law of physics. It's just we've proven that it's very difficult for for the organization to do some of these things. So I love the data driven, like back to basics. How do we make it work? I'd love to get into a little bit of that next piece at kind of the individual level, because there's the broader successful and successful adoption, but there's also in like an individual who's now in many cases now starting to work with a digital team member or some kind of a tool to add to their work, their day, their automation. Tell me more about what you're seeing help individuals adapt to this kind of digital team member or augmented capability that they've got now.
Yeah, and the conditions of organizational success within those 20, there were about 5 of them that focused right on how we equip the individuals that make up the organization. And this is kind of the seed of Prosci's perspective on organizational change, is we have organizational change and individuals to go through change, and we got to figure out how to bring those things together, right?
Yeah.
And so things like individual access and tools, tailoring, role specific and tailored engagements and support to help people figure out how to really bring it into the way that they do their jobs. And I think that's that pervasive proficiency that we're really starting to watch organizations get more focused on. And we've actually done quite a bit of work on how to help people make that kind of personal transition. I think it's really about taking a task first rather than a tool first approach. And so to me, I got one of the gentlemen on my growth team sent me a link really early in the AI days to a web page called There's an AI for That. And it's a big inventory of AI tools that were coming out on the web. And again, I'm not endorsing it at all, but there was a button on it that said job impact. And when you click the job impact button, there was a whole list of job titles. And when you click any of those job titles, it listed the tasks that job does, and then had, the number of tools that were already being built to help somebody with that task. And it was such a pivotal moment for me, Sean, to be like, the task is the unit of impact. Tasks that involve zeros and ones are the tasks that this new technology can touch, can either disrupt or provide opportunity to. And what's interesting is we string tasks together to make workflows and processes. We put them together into project plans when we're doing initiatives. We jumble them together to make up jobs. But the task is kind of that unit. And so when we help somebody think about how do I individually bring AI, this digital collaborator, this AI intern into the table with me, we start with what are the tasks you do? Because we want to start with you and your tasks. And then say, you know what, we have kind of a sorting, 3 different buckets we sort into. The first bucket we call the human exclusive tasks. That's my work. So it'd be the Sean work bucket. And it's the stuff that takes empathy, presence, attunement to the room, all those things that are human exclusive that only you do.
Yep.
That's that human exclusive bucket.
I know the data says this, but man, I get the willies when I meet that guy. So I'm just not going to work with him.
Intuition, right? To really navigating tough things, celebrating with one another,
right?
Right? That's the kind of stuff that's human exclusive. This far other side of the buckets we call the for me work. That's AI automation potential. Things that could ultimately be fully given up to an AI, to some sort of, and that bucket has gotten a lot bigger over the last 6 months as this agentic move has happened. And as the capabilities expand, more and more work I can start putting into the for me work bucket. It's the stuff that I give to the robots because it already made me feel like a robot anyways. That's the kind of, it's rule-based, it's routine, it's repetitive. That's the for me bucket. The middle bucket is what I call the with me work. That's that collaboration opportunities. I really believe I say the magic's in the middle. That's really where the excitement happens. It's where I get inspiration. I get initiation support. Sean, one of my favorite equations, I love math. I don't know if you like math, but here's one of my favorite equations in the AI space. First drafts in a flash plus SME polish equals unlock. And I heard you describe it even just about 5 minutes ago. It can give me the first draft in a flash, but I got to put the SME polish on. That's where my experience, my intuition, those things come together. And then I get that. That's the unlock, is bringing those things together. But when I need immediate access to information, if I was going to go find a bunch of information that was out there online, it's way better at finding zeros and ones than I am at finding zeros and ones, as long as I'm good at extracting it with what I need to do. And so
The
My
context.
work, with me work, for me work. And then we start to take it lots of different perspectives just to help somebody. We hear human in the loop. This is about letting people draw out their own loops. This is the Sean loop, this is the robot loop, and this is the together loop. And you get to start to sort the work you're doing into those. So we have e-learning and workshops that we come in and help organizations give their people the power to start to draw those loops.
That's so fun. I wanted to, hit that one more time because as much as on when I wrote the GMAT, my quant side was not the strongest. I did amazing on the other side, but I'm also slightly dyslexic, Tim. So for me, the one and the zero and the zero and the one, it's better if my controller or financial team deals with that part. But this is getting to exactly the point of the augmentation, right? Because for one individual team member, they might be amazing at ones and zeros and keeping them in the right order. And then for another team member, they might be amazing at, the design or the iteration or the what the business process would look like and that art of the possible. But those are often not the same person.
Yeah.
And so by tuning the role and the way that the augmentation and, to your point, draw your own loops is so powerful because different people end up needing a different way of chatting. So we think about the amazing power of chatbots. You could chat with a chatbot, but people tire of feeling like they're playing 20 questions with a chatbot to execute a transaction. And so you very quickly be like, okay, just give me a form. And then if you can get part of the chat answers into the form already, then you're off to the races for the adoption, for how the loop was done, for how it helped. Obviously, we could talk for hours about this. Tim, I'd love to land the plane because I know in the links, there's a couple of resources that we can link up to help make sure. So if you're listening to this on Spotify, just see if you can take a look on there, find it on LinkedIn, find it on YouTube, and look in the comments for the description for the episode. There's a couple of PDFs that we'll link up, Tim, so deeply appreciative of that. Prosci has so many resources to help organizations really think through the implications and all of the things, the preconditions for change. Why does somebody reach out to you and the Prosci team? When and how do they do that, Tim?
Yeah, so prosci.com, the website is the easiest place in terms of a front door. Usually, Sean, people reach out for one of two reasons. Either I have a must-win, can't-fail project that I appreciate adoption is a critical component of, either because I've got some train wrecks in the past where we tried this before, or I just know, or I had an enlightened change practitioner that presented a really good case for me. So a lot of times we come for people help to get support on particular initiatives to over deliver on the adoption dependent ROI of that initiative. The other side is we as an organization realize that growing change muscle is the most important muscle we can grow as an organization. Because even if we're in the public sector, out changing is the most important thing we can be doing. And so those people
Yeah.
come to us for a more of that common language, building competencies, capabilities top to bottom in the organization. And a lot of times they end up kind of mixing because we tend to build our change muscle through doing change better. And then, yeah, this AI adoption stuff has just been a really fascinating, exciting place to be playing because there's such an interesting people side component of this particular technology and how it's rolled out. So
That beauty of bringing the key fundamentals into, how, the more we change, the more we stay the same in that those fundamentals remain true, and how to apply those effectively to, lean on the learnings and the scars of others to
yeah,
bring
right.
all of those things into your organization. Tim, so grateful for you joining us today and for you and the role that the ProSci team helps move so many people forward. There's so much cheese moving out there, and I know you guys are helping make that easy. So thank you, Tim. And for everybody watching, this has been another edition of The Never Ending Climb for Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement. See you next week.